Come to find out, I had a 3 inch by 3 inch mass in my head pressing on my brain.
Welcome to Creativity with Purpose, where we explore the stories, struggles, and sparks that shape our creative lives. I'm your host, Ann Murachek, author, healer, and believer in the power of meaningful expression. Together, we'll dive deep into what it means to create with heart, live with intention, and heal through the beauty of storytelling.
Ann Murachek, and this is Creativity with Purpose. Today, I'm interviewing Gigi Gaudet Clark. She is a powerhouse of resilience, achievement, and inspiration. She is an elite athlete, life-threatening brain tumor survivor, and transformational leader. As the creator of the Empowerment and Adventure Foundation, Gigi channels her experience into actionable strategies for overcoming adversity. Hi, Gigi. Good morning.
Good morning, Ann. Thanks so much for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to be here, and I know we're going to have a lot of fun getting better acquainted and addressing how we can achieve happiness.
Absolutely. And just so everyone knows, we share the same book editor.
That's right.
I've got a book coming out. Tell me about your book.
Right. So the book is called Triumph, Overcoming Adversity. So that's what it's about, and that's the name of it, Triumph.
And you've lived that.
I have.
Yeah.
So here's the backstory. I had always been an athlete. I'd run 3 marathons. I had done a half Ironman where you swim 1.1 miles, then you bike 57.6 miles, and then you run 13.1 miles. I did it in August when it was hot.
Oh my gosh.
So I'd done all these things, and I'd climbed to the top of Mount Whitney, the highest point in the contiguous U.S. with my 2 young adult children, Scott and Caroline. Then suddenly things became very hard. My hands were shaking. I had ongoing tremors. I couldn't even write a birthday card. I thought it must look like a little kid wrote this. Not even. My hands were like this all the time. Driving was horrendous because
but that was
I
scary.
had no peripheral vision. When I entered traffic, I kept getting hit. Wham! It's amazing that I'm alive. I must have a guardian angel.
Oh, we all do, yes.
I had been in so many accidents, they almost took my driver's license away.
Oh my
My
God.
insurance was almost gone. So
Yeah.
all that was happening in the afternoons. I was falling asleep, going on Zoom calls. People would look at me and say, "What's wrong with her?" Literally, they would say, "What's wrong with her?" It was very insulting. So then I called a neurologist,
Yeah.
and then the neurologist, I called her in March. She didn't accept me until August of that year. And then she she gave me simple tests like follow my finger, touch your nose, things like that, reflex tests. And then she didn't order an MRI. She admitted me in August of that year. She didn't order an MRI until the end of the following April, until I really pushed for it. I really need an MRI.
Yeah.
Anyway, things were just getting worse and worse.
Mhm.
So come to find out, I go in for the MRI. I drove myself there. I come out, and the machine, and the technicians look at me in sheer horror. What's wrong? They didn't even tell me that night what was wrong. They knew, and I said, "What's wrong?" And they said, "Why does everybody look so alarmed?" And they said, "The doctor will review it, and the results will be online tomorrow morning." Come to find out, I had a 3 inch by 3 inch mass in my head pressing on my brain. My husband said, "You should come up with an analogy. How big is that? Is that the size of a baby's fist?" Well, I measured my own fist is 3 inches wide. So this 3 inch by 3 inch fist was in my head, pressing on my brain. Can you imagine my little head pressing on my brain? So the doctor said, "You have to come in here right away and have this removed." And they didn't want me driving home.
Oh my
They
gosh.
said, "Did you drive yourself here?" I said, "I did."
Yeah.
And they said, well, then he was then my boyfriend. We'll have your partner come pick you up. So I
Yeah.
said, okay, call my partner. So then I came out of that. And then one in the following spring, well, that spring, a New York Post article came out that said the Great Depression. Were they talking about the economic depression? That's what the headline in the New York Post screen was, the Great Depression. Do you think they were talking about an economic depression?
Not a
No,
decade.
they
Yeah.
were talking about um, the state of our youth at that time,
Mm.
particularly teenagers. And I had a picture of these 8 teenage girls, all their heads each down, with a big Ferris wheel in the background. Were they riding rides and having fun? No, they each had their head down. They were like this in their phones. I said,
Oh.
so sad. I said, these young women need somebody that they can look up to and be inspired by. So
Mhm.
that's why I founded the Empowerment and Venture Foundation,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
give them women that they can look up to say, she can do that, I can do it too.
Right, right. And the brain tumor, I assume you had that surgically removed.
I did. They removed it on May 28th.
Uh-huh.
May 10th, they removed it. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks when I got out of surgery, and I had to learn how to walk and talk again.
Oh my goodness.
So I went
Wow.
from learning how to walk to and they when I got out of the hospital, they said, "What do you want to do when you get out of here?" I
Mhm.
said, "You know what?" To myself, I said to them, I want to learn to play tennis again because I played as a little
Oh,
kid.
fun. Uh-huh.
But I said to myself, I've run 3 marathons. In
Uh,
2014, I just missed qualifying for Boston by 2 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
I want to go back. I want to run another marathon, but this time I actually want to qualify for Boston. I said to
Oh,
myself, I put that goal in my head.
that's
And
quite a
so,
goal when you can't walk.
right, exactly. You can't even
Right,
walk.
right, right.
And in the hospital, I was literally tied to the bed. If I tried to get up, because of insurance reasons, they didn't want me even walking to the bathroom.
Oh my.
I wasn't even allowed to move to the bathroom or from the bed to the chair. Otherwise, all kinds of alarms, ding, 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 would go
Right.
off. It was
Oh my God.
terrible. So even to the day I was discharged, I was there for 19 days. To the day I was discharged, I was not allowed to go from the bed to the chair or the bed to the bathroom.
Well, how do they expect you to function at home? They have to know that you have to do these things. You don't have someone to carry you everywhere.
Right. 3 days a week, they would have physical therapy where I could walk they got me to the point where I could walk for a half hour. Other than that, I was tied to the bed.
Oh my gosh.
That was it.
And for
And
someone
can you
who is
imagine?
used to
I can't
having,
believe I didn't get atrophy,
yeah,
like my
yeah,
muscles aren't moving for a whole
right, right,
month.
like being in a cast.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Oh my
So
gosh.
when I got out, I did learn how to walk. I set that goal in my head. I
Sure.
slowly got to the point where I was walking and then eventually jogging a little bit. And then December 4th, I was discharged on May 29th. December 4th, I ran, well, actually in August, I ran a 5K in Westport,
Oh
and
my.
not a great time, but an okay, like for somebody that just learned how to walk. I finished it and I said, if I can do a 5K, surely I can do a half marathon. So I started looking for a half marathon. So December 4th that year, I ran the New York half marathon in the pouring rain.
Oh no.
The man who became my husband said, it's barely 40 degrees and it's raining out. Don't you want to sit by the fire? I said, no, I'm going. I'm
Oh
going to this
my
half marathon. Are
gosh.
you coming or not? And he said, okay, I'll come.
Oh
So
my gosh.
he didn't get it. He didn't know. I didn't tell him my goal at that time. So
Yeah.
I ran and I finished it in the pouring rain. It was
Wow.
cold.
Oh, I
So
bet. I bet it was cool.
and so I ran it. And then I called my father, my son, my daughter. I let him know I did it. And then And then when I got home, the first thing I did was I said, if I can run a half marathon in the rain, surely I can run a full marathon. So I immediately went online and registered for the Sugarloaf Marathon. And
I
I ran May 14th, less than a year from hospital discharge. I ran the Sugarloaf Marathon. And guess what? I actually qualified for the Boston Marathon.
did. Yay!
Not just my age group, but the age group below mine.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
exactly. So I beat my time from 9 years earlier. Can you imagine?
Oh,
Like reverse
amazing.
aging.
Yeah,
So,
it is. It is. And that
all
just
mindset.
highlights, yes, exactly. It's what I was going to say. The power of the human spirit and the narratives that we tell ourselves are so defining
Hmm.
because you could have just as easily said, my life is over.
Right.
Guess I'll never do that again, and accepted that diagnosis, but you
Hmm.
didn't.
No,
You
no.
didn't.
Right.
And that's so much a part of my journey as well. I don't know if you know this about me, but when I was 16 years old, my algebra teacher, of all things, and I really liked him, rear-ended my car while I was
Oh,
on the way
no.
to high school one morning. I was stopped and he hit me going 40 miles an hour from behind. And this was in the days, this is 1972, before we had headrests in
Oh,
cars. And my neck broke. I whiplashed so hard it
oh,
crushed the top
no.
vertebrae of my atlas. And so to this day, I don't have any bone connection between my spine and my skull.
Oh, no.
All that's left is soft tissue connection. And it moves around in there, and I have to get it adjusted constantly by my chiropractor, who is now my dearest friend. But laying in bed, the doctors coming in, when it first happened, they said, well, we're going to screw a halo into your skull and we're going to open your spine all the way down and we're going to put a rod down your spine to stabilize you.
Oh,
And
my.
I just looked at them and I said, no, we're not going to do that.
Oh,
No, thank you. No, thank you. I said, I'll heal. And they're like, this is an impossible scenario. Your spine will never heal. And I said, well, then I'll live without it healed. And I'll still do everything that I want to do in life. This is not going to stop me. I'm only 16. I'm not going to live the rest of my life like this, right?
right.
It's
Right.
not going to happen, right?
Good for
And I'd
you.
always been a dancer. I was always into the music and the arts. I was a concert pianist already at that age. And I just said, no, we're not going to do that. And fortunately, my parents did not force me. They respected my choice. And I went to this chiropractor every single day. And he kept everything else because there was nothing holding pieces together. It was all just sort of floating in there at this point. And
Oh,
he
no.
kept things in alignment. And you know what? It healed.
Wow. That's
Similar to you, I went back to dancing.
oh,
And
wonderful.
my senior year, the injury happened my sophomore year. My senior year, I actually went and I auditioned for a part singing and dancing in the Palace show at Six Flags over Mid America.
Oh,
And they had two
exciting.
spots open. There were 5 women in the cast. They had invited 3 from the previous year's cast to return. So they were trying to fill 2 spots. My audition number was 2000 and I don't know, something like
Oh
30.
my
Was
gosh, not much competition there.
Yeah, exactly. And I went with strep throat and I was eating cough lozenges like by the bags full. I was exhausted. I slept on the floor waiting for the audition. Finally, I was one of the last people. And I got up there and adrenaline kicked in and I sang this rousing rendition of I Could Have Danced All Night. And they said, you've made it to the next round.
Oh my gosh.
So then we did the dance round. And this is where I was just absolutely determined, right? I'm going to do this. And at the end of the day, it's dark outside. It's been a long, long day. I still have strep throat. They call you up on stage and they either say thank you, which means get off my stage.
Right. See you later, alligator.
Right. Or stay, right? And so I'd gotten the stay. I went into the second round of dance auditions. And then after this, they tell you whether or not you've been chosen, right? And so I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm hearing thank you. And people are walking off in tears. Thank you. Thank you. And I got up there and they said, we'd like to sign you on to be part of the cast
Wow.
of,
Excellent.
of the Palace
Congratulations.
show. And I'm thinking, they have no idea I have a broken neck. I mean, imagine I never said a word, right?
Right, right.
And the realization struck me. I did it. I did it.
You did
I,
it.
I'm fully functional
All
again.
mindset.
It,
Right.
it is. It is. Don't, when someone delivers a box of snakes to your front door, don't sign for them, right? I wasn't about to accept that defeated diagnosis.
Right.
It's like just because you don't know a path to recovery doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And obviously, you had that same kind of ferocity and belief in the potentiality of your own recovery that you
Exactly.
manifested in your life.
Right. So that's why in my book, my upcoming book, Triumph, and in the Empowerment and Adventure Foundation, I
Yes.
teach the best method, victory by believing in yourself,
Yes.
expecting more of yourself. That's B. And then best, a belief in a higher power. There is some sort of higher power that has your back.
Yes.
Empathy and compassion for others. Listen to other people. Set goals. Be tenacious. Stick with it. Don't give up. And then throughout it all, practice gratitude.
Yeah.
Gratitude will save you. Being grateful. And I was so grateful that for all the people that had visited me in the hospital and
Sure.
supported me emotionally throughout things. So it was really the best method that saved me. And it will save other people as well. It's a roadmap to happiness.
Absolutely. And how does someone get involved with your group? I mean, where do you reach out to
There's
people?
a website,
Mhm.
www.empower hyphen or dash adventure.com. So they can email me at Gigi, Gigi, at empower, um, at empower-adventure.com.
Okay. All right. Now,
Okay.
is can so anyone do this? I mean, is this for a specific age group? Is it for women, for
Well,
men? Is it
we
how?
can customize programs. We
Oh,
did this in the YWCA initially for
huh.
high school 6th to 12th grade young women.
Oh,
And we drew
perfect.
people from New York, Connecticut, all over New York, upstate New York and Connecticut. And we had speakers, powerful speakers besides myself, loads of speakers who had overcome death in their family, um, political adversity, escaping from bad countries and coming here,
Oh,
all
wow.
kinds of
Huh.
adversity, and
Yeah.
overcome that adversity. It was just helping, whether you had adversity or not, becoming the best version of yourself. So
Mhm.
now we customize programs for organizations and for schools and for corporations. And I also do corporate speaking gigs. So if a corporation is having a sales award uh, trip,
Mhm.
or like the Breast Cancer Foundation is having some sort of gathering, I
Sure.
can go speak to those people and offer inspiration by teaching the best method.
Right. And it's always so much more relatable when the person that you're watching in front of you gets it. It's
Right,
like, I've been in those trenches.
right,
I've been
right,
through that pain. I
right.
filled my ears with tears. All right.
Right.
Been there.
Been there, right. But
Yeah,
now I want to know,
exactly.
how do I get out?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And for me, it was just defeat was not an option.
No,
It was never in my psyche that I was going to be paralyzed from the neck down. It just was not an
you
option.
are not going to play the victim and say,
No,
why me?
no,
Right.
no.
Never.
And I didn't blame my algebra teacher. It was truly an accident. It was nothing of malintent. There was a tanker truck trying to pull into the gas station, and the line of cars were stopped as he was maneuvering across the lane. And just as my algebra teacher came up over the hill, another car full of teenagers had rolled down their window, were going, hey, hey, and waving hi to him, right?
Oh.
So just in that one instant, he looked away, and that's when he hit me. Because he didn't see that the line of cars was stopped in front of him. Because, by all normal circumstances, it wouldn't have been, right?
Right.
And he was going 40, and I was stopped. I was at a complete standstill. And again, I think it was all circumstantial as well, because this is before headrest. And I think now, I'd have just bumped the headrest and I'd bruised, but,
right.
it wouldn't have been so traumatic.
Broken your neck.
Right, exactly. And it was truly an accident. It was nothing of, he wasn't drunk. He was, nothing. It was just one of those weird circumstantial things, right? So I wasn't angry. It wasn't anyone's quote fault.
Right.
It just, things happen, right?
Right.
But I wasn't going to let that define me.
Right.
Right?
I am not a victim.
Right. I'm not a victim, and I am not the trauma.
Right.
I have everything I need within me.
Right. Exactly.
To envision the future that I cherish and that I want for myself.
Right.
And so whatever it takes, right? And so I had to go to the chiropractor every single day, and I did therapies, and he kept things in alignment. Okay, so I go every day, right?
Right.
When I finally went back to high school, I went in a soft collar to support my neck, and I couldn't sit down.
Oh.
It was an interesting thing. I either had to be standing or laying flat.
Oh.
The seated position, for some reason, it just caused so much pain, I couldn't tolerate it. Right. So I arranged for the school to have like a lectures podium.
Excellent.
And I could stand in front of this
standing desk.
Right, a standing desk for me, which, back in the day, they didn't actually have standing desks, but we got a lectures podium and put it on top of a desk. And then I had an assistant write for me because I couldn't lift my arms.
Oh.
I couldn't do this.
Right.
That became more problematic than the neck eventually, because I remember I mentioned I played the piano.
Right.
Yeah. So that made me pivot off of the trajectory that I had originally planned for myself, which was concert pianist. I was actually auditioning with symphonies at the time.
Wow.
I had Schumann's Piano Concerto in A minor ready to perform. So that trajectory had to change, and I became a music composition major instead of a performing artist, instead of a pianist. Best thing that ever could have happened, because now I don't spend my life hours and hours and hours and hours memorizing someone else's creation.
Right. You're creating
now
your own.
I have my own music that channels through me, right?
Right.
I find that infinitely more rewarding and joyful. And I feel that the music now is actually being channeled through me. So sometimes those adversities in life redirect you where you're really supposed to be.
Right, right.
Don't you feel that?
I do feel that, yes.
Because don't you find now that having been through this gives you that wealth and depth of compassion and understanding for others that you have now to give?
Exactly, yes. And, the young women that walked out of the Empowerment and Adventure program, they had tremendous case studies. I mean, at the end of the program, we had a rock climbing adventure indoors where we went rock climbing. And one of them walked out of that and said, if I can do that, I can do anything. If I can do the rock climbing, I can do anything. And then another walked out and said she loved the psychotherapist, and she loved the woman that spoke about her mother passing, who went on to work on Wall Street and then start her own local business enterprise. And So those case studies were really fantastic.
Yeah. And how rewarding to have that immediate
Feedback.
feedback. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. That
Yeah.
you can see how impactful your
Right.
message is.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Another one, love speaking to each of the speakers after the session. So we would start with exercise. We'd have a world-class ex athlete lead the exercise. One who
Oh,
had completed won the world's half marathon in Hawaii, where you swim
yeah.
1.1 miles, then you bike, and then you run a half marathon. She
Phew.
won it 3 times.
Oh my Lord.
So she went over, she would start with warm-up exercises to get us all limber. And then she'd also do she also, in addition to doing the physical warm-up exercises, she also did meditation, where in the end we were sort of floating. It
There
was
we go.
fantastic. So
Yeah.
I would gather together these world-class athletes to in the beginning, we'd start with a snack and then we'd do the warm-up exercises. And then in between, we'd do the meditation. So then we'd have a speaker. I was the initial keynote speaker,
Huh?
and then these other speakers came up and spoke, and then we do
Sure.
the exercise in between each speaker. So it was really great. And
And I love that you integrated the physical movement,
right,
which
exactly.
gets
You
us
need
in
that.
tune, right, with ourselves, but also the meditative because
Right,
the spirit, oh my goodness, that's everything. That's where your power is, right? That's where your connectivity is to source.
right,
And to tap into that right
right.
from the beginning makes you so much more receptive.
You're more open to
Yeah,
receiving the message, right? Because you've
exactly.
had your exercise, you've had your meditation. Now I can listen and receive the message.
Exactly. And that's something that we can do for ourselves at home.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to be, top athletes to stretch and to move and just to deep breathe, right?
Right,
Yeah, we
right,
can do that from our chair. We can sit here
right,
and deep breathe. We can get into a place of gratitude.
right,
Um, and that's that's a way to empower yourself for any life's achievement,
right,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
Now
of
we all have hurdles in life. I like to
course.
show a video where there's this high school New Jersey athlete.
Uh-huh.
She's at a track meet and she's in the hurdles. And
Ooh,
there are, I don't know, 9 hurdles in the race. The second or third hurdle, the gun goes off. They all line up, like they're
yeah.
all lined up to go. And the gun goes off. They all take off. And on the third hurdle, she trips and falls down.
Oh,
She had set the goal. She was tenacious. She did not quit. She picked herself up and
mhm.
she went on and she sped up and she passed one person, passed another. And even though she was the one that fell down on the hurdle, she went on to win the race.
There you go.
And everybody cheered. But it's that she didn't play the victim. She had set that goal. She was tenacious. She expected more of herself.
Yeah,
And she
yeah,
stuck with it. And lo and behold, she won the race. Now, not all of us are athletes by any
true.
means,
Of
but
course.
we all have hurdles in life. It could be death of a loved one. It
Sure.
could be financial insecurity. It could be a career setback. All sorts of things. It could be domestic violence. We all have hurdles in life of some sort. If you think you're going to get through life with no hurdles, you're mistaken. So you will face hurdles. It's how you handle
Right.
those hurdles that count.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, she found herself in a difficult situation, but she went within to find the power to overcome that.
Right.
It's because losing wasn't an option.
No, no,
Exactly. And when you set your mindset that way,
right.
it's, it's incredible how we can rise to the occasion, how we can
If you
rise to the
expect
chaos.
more of yourself and you
Yes,
believe in yourself and you set that goal and you're tenacious, you can do it.
yes. And that applies to all of life's goals.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There will be hurdles. It's how we handle those hurdles
Yes,
that counts.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, quick question, when does your book come out? I know
So the
you're
book
you're
will be
currently,
out by before Christmas. So
oh,
I'm
yay.
thinking in November. So if people want to order it as a Christmas gift, it
Yeah,
will be available on Amazon in November. So
excellent.
I'm just wrapping it up, having it edited,
Yeah,
and so they will be able to find it on Amazon.
excellent. Well, I know you're
It'll
a,
also be in retail stores. So
excellent,
they can
excellent.
go to Barnes and Noble or they can go to
Sure,
Amazon.
sure, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, that's so fantastic. So, what is next for you?
So what's next is speaking engagements,
There
lots of
you go.
speaking engagements.
Yeah. So, I'm really fascinated about that the best. And can you break that down and give me some actionable steps? Because I really would like to give people something that they can do at home as a direct application of this.
Of course I can. Thank you for
Okay.
asking, by the
Yeah.
way. So V stands for victory. Woohoo. And best, believe in yourself. Say to yourself, I can do this. I know I can do this. I can absolutely do this. I will do this.
Right.
Expect more of yourself. A lot of people think, "Oh, I can't do it." You can do more than you think you can. It's so easy to fall into the trap of, I can't do that. I mean, I could have looked at myself and said, I tried to run a marathon when I was younger. I never qualified for Boston, all these excuses. And
And I
I
think brain tumor would have been sufficient excuse.
Right. That would have been a sufficient excuse. And thankfully it was non-cancerous. I know a lot of people get meningioma and it does mean death, but for me it was not cancerous. So I was really blessed.
Yeah.
And I think that was my belief in a higher power, which also helped, and the love of all the other people. But anyway, so I expected more of myself, and I would have had lots of excuses.
Mhm.
And we all have excuses in life, but we can do more than we think we can. And I know I don't want to get political. I know a lot of people hate Elon Musk. They don't like him for whatever reason, but he does expect, and with all his faults, he does expect more of himself
Yes.
in terms of coming up with enabling ways for people to walk or giving satellite access. You have internet no matter where you are. You could be in the middle of the ocean or you could be in
Yeah.
outer
Right.
space. You can access the internet. So whatever you don't like about him, which I understand, he does expect more of himself and pushes himself
Yeah.
to achieve more.
And
So,
he of all people would have the excuse, oh, I've made plenty of money. I'm just going to go lay on a beach somewhere.
right,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right,
And yet that creative drive has stayed intact. So the past success has not dampened or inhibited his drive for his future.
right,
I think
exactly.
that's an important part of moving forward through life as well. I don't know if you've experienced this, but I got a lot of pushback from primarily family, but friends also, when I started writing Unpacking the Attic.
Really?
Oh, they were like, at your age, why do you think you can suddenly be an author? What are you writing a book for? It's like, well,
Why not?
why not?
I
Right.
want to leave my
Also,
legacy. People say,
that's
why
true.
are you driven to write this book? Because I
Sure.
want to leave my legacy.
Yes. And I felt like it was the journey of writing it in itself had its own intrinsic value.
Right,
It was a healing journey for me. And whether or not I had ever intended on making it public at the beginning, which I didn't at the beginning,
right,
the physical act of writing these thoughts out and writing down these memories and processing through them with the intent to heal and forgive, that
right,
value in and of itself.
Right.
And I think, how does that relate to my age? It's irrelevant, right?
Right.
Whether
Age
I'm
is
trying to
irrelevant.
heal at 16 from a broken neck or I'm trying to heal in my 60s from a broken heart, I'm still moving forward and I'm still being bringing my own creativity to my own purpose, right?
Right.
My
Exactly.
purpose at that point was to process those childhood traumas and memories and heal
Right.
and forgive and move forward. So how I I still to this day don't understand why people would look at me and say, you're too old to write a book, or you're too old to embark on a new adventure or a new career. I'm hoping that when I'm 100, I have something else to say and I'm writing my 50th book, right?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Why should I waste one breath of this precious air and this precious time that I have here?
Right.
Right? And you
Waste
didn't
a
do that.
second of it.
Yeah.
Right. So then the best is belief in a higher power. If you
Yes.
believe that there's some sort of higher power, I don't care what religion you are, but
Right.
there is some sort of higher power taking care of us to make sure whatever to
Yeah.
support us. There
Yeah.
is some sort of higher power leading the way. And having empathy for other people. If you don't have empathy, you can have compassion. You can listen to other people. Empathy means you've been through it and can say, I understand because I've lived through it.
Yes.
Compassion means that you can have compassion for those people and really listen to them, what they're saying, and hear their pain, hear their what they're going through. And if you can make people feel like they're not alone, it will come back to you later.
Sure. And reaching out and not only what I see what you've done, you say, okay, I understand that you're hurting and I'm compassionate for you, but you took it the next step.
Right.
You're empowering with your foundation to give to these people and to give them the vehicle and to give them the mindset that they need for transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's one thing to say, yeah, I feel sorry for you and I understand,
Right.
and
That's a whole nother thing. But to
that's a
take
whole
your
nother
life and
thing.
actually do something about it, create a nonprofit foundation and
Right.
actually put it into action and do it.
Exactly. So,
Well, they bring all of these teen women together.
yeah. And, the teen years are so hard.
They
They're
are.
so hard. That transition from childhood into adult responsibility, that's a big thing. And
Right.
when you're dealing with dysfunctional families or abuse or physical limitations that you have to overcome, it just compiles. And so
Right.
to have that guiding light,
Right.
so important, because then you have a start to look to, right? To
Right.
climb to. You've got a goal, you've got empowerment, you see a way through.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
It's that light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
There's a place to go toward.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Right.
exactly.
Right. So we had as I said, we had the world-class athletes who led the
Yeah.
exercises and the meditation. And then we had a psychotherapist, we had a doctor, a real medical doctor.
Uh-huh.
We
Uh-huh.
had all kinds of inspirational women.
Yeah.
So um, to give these young women somebody that they could look up to and say, if she can do it, I can do it too.
Right.
And we
Exactly.
did it on a Sunday because on all the other days they had things going on. So,
Yeah.
so, right. So, what else? So, set goal S is set goals. So, mine was I want to run the Boston Marathon, and this time actually qualify for Boston, which I did
Wow.
run last year. I ran and completed the Boston Marathon last
Oh
year.
my gosh.
So that was an over the top positive
Oh,
experience. The
I
spirit of the town
bet.
was unbelievable.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
right. And we're not, as I said, we're not all athletes or marathon runners, but we will all have hurdles in life. So set those goals of what it is you want to accomplish. And
Yes.
then be tenacious about it. No matter what comes your way, what hurdle you have, do not give up. Be like the high school hurdler in the competition. When she fell down, she didn't just say, oh gosh, the race is over.
Yeah.
She picked herself up and accelerated and went on to win the race.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Because in her mind, that's what she envisioned herself doing, right?
Right,
It starts here and it starts in the heart.
right,
And then we can manifest the the physical reality around us, but it always starts in the heart and in the spirit. It's
right,
that heart mind, heart spirit connection
right.
that empowers us. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And then throughout it all, practice gratitude. I wrote thank you letters to every single person, the surgeon, to everybody that visited me in the hospital, to anybody who sent me flowers, anybody who brought me something in the hospital, cards, playing cards.
Yeah. I think you talking about gratitude, don't you think that even the process of writing those thank you notes was putting you in a place of gratitude so
Yeah,
that the physical writing of the card was therapeutic for you, and I'm sure that the people that received the letter found a joy, and there's something about being appreciated that we
right,
we all want to be seen, we
right,
all want to be appreciated, and I think that's empowering for them as well. So I can see it having a benefit on both sides.
right, right,
And in this digital age, I think that the art and the etiquette of writing thank you letters has slipped away from us, and I think that's a shame. I think we need to focus on the fact that actually physically writing out those words of gratitude has a benefit for your spirit as well as for the person who then receives it.
absolutely. Right on. Right. You hit it right, the nail right on the head. Is that the expression? You hit it right on the head. The act of writing is going away, and people say they do polls. Did you write thank you notes for your wedding? And some people say, "Oh, I sent a text or I sent an email."
Yeah,
That doesn't do it. You need to
doesn't.
physically write the letter, and it is very, I don't know if you want to say therapeutic, but
Oh, sure.
expressing that gratitude
Yeah,
in writing makes a tremendous difference.
it
And
does.
so I wrote to the surgeon, I wrote to the psychotherapist, I wrote to the um, physical therapist, I
Yes.
wrote to people that brought me treats or books or playing cards in the hospital.
Yeah.
I wrote to family members when I got out. Um, they well, first of all, my now husband's daughters threw a welcome home party for me.
Oh,
My father and my son were there, and that made a big difference. That
sure.
welcome home. And I came home, my son picked me up from the hospital and packed up all my stuff because I had been there for a month, all
Right.
my
Yeah.
pictures, everything I had. And he brought me home. And thank goodness, thank God for my son Scott, because he drove me home and to packed up all my stuff. He didn't actually visit me in the hospital, but then he stayed with me for a full nearly 3 weeks afterwards.
Oh,
So
yeah.
and helped me. And it was like Camp Scott. It was great
Right.
because I wasn't
Yeah.
driving yet. So he drove me to all my cognitive appointments, all my physical therapy appointments, all my different appointments.
Yeah. I
He
bet there was
drove
a
me
follow
too.
up.
And then he also helped with the exercise. So he not only got me walking again, but we played badminton in the front yard. We went, and in the grand finale was hiking in the end. We went to Indian Ledge State Park where he showed me where he and his friend had mountain biked as teenagers, and one went over the cliff and fell and got up and said he thought Scott's heart went into his lungs, into his throat. And then friend got up and said, I'm alive. So his friend was still alive. But anyway, I wrote a long thank you note for my son
Sure.
who helped me for 18 days after the surgery to bring me back to life. So he helps with everything. So I have tremendous gratitude for him and my husband, my now husband, who visited me every day in the hospital. So I have a lot to be grateful for, and my friends who visited me and helped me as well.
Sure.
So, and these people are all still friends and family members now, but it's the art of writing that, putting that gratitude into handwriting that really helps you physically and emotionally move on.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Right.
It does. Um, I've got a question that I like to ask all of my guests, and that is, what do you consider a fulfilled life?
A fulfilled life is when you're doing the things you want to do. You're getting enough sleep, you're getting enough sufficient exercise, you're eating healthily, and you have rewarding things happen to you. When my book is published later this year, that will be very rewarding to me.
Yes.
And when I go to speak at corporations or organizations, whether it's for the elderly or for breast cancer people, or if it's, as I said, with corporations, that
Sure.
will be very rewarding to me. So, the rewarding life is setting those goals, achieving the goals, and then going on to set more goals and achieve more goals. So, that's a rewarding life, setting goals and achieving those goals.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, you know what? I can see why people would want you to be their inspirational speaker. This has been just delightful. And
Oh, I really enjoyed it,
we'll
Anne.
have to do
Thank
it
you.
again sometime. This has been a lot of fun.
Best of success to you with your book, Unpacking the Attic. I want to get that book, and I'll send you a copy of Triumph when it's published.
When it's out, you bet. Absolutely. And I will put a link in the description below on how people can get a hold of you as well. So
Excellent.
it'll be
Terrific.
excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anne.